Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of commentary from a D-list black belt. Before we begin, once again, thank you so much for all the support, guys. We're up to 57 subscribers now as of my checking just before this video, which I think is really cool, so thank you very much for that. Again, if you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to give me a comment saying what you did and didn't like, because I'm always open to suggestions to improve my channel. And I'd love to grow the channel to a point where I can really start interacting with the community sort of on a day-to-day, because that would be cool. I'm all about the cross-training and so on and so forth and sharing of ideas. So please don't forget to subscribe, guys. Give me a like. Let's grow this channel together. And yeah, we'll get into it. So today I've got for you Dalpra versus Gomes. I believe that's how you say his last name, from Art of Jiu-Jitsu, and then Checkmat. Art of Jiu-Jitsu produces some really top-level guys. I had the pleasure of rolling with Taliesin Sororas a couple of months back now, last year, or might be a year ago now. He just won his third world title at black belt. He's been training for as long as I've been training, but he's won worlds at every single level, so he's just insanely talented young lad. I believe that this was a bit of an upset match because Tynan has won 60 matches, I believe it was, with no losses at his black belt. And so it should be pretty good. I don't know if there's a submission at all, but just from the brief bit that I played it a little bit before, there's some really nice details that are going on. So we'll get into it. Yeah, nice. So already there's some really nice jiu-jitsu going on with the grip fighting. Now, what we love to see from Jansen here, if you watch, I believe that this is Jansen and Tynan's in the white gi. He does this really nice thing with the grip fighting with his left hand here, where he'll lead in for the collar first, open it out, and then grab for the right hand. Now this is a really good strategy for grip fighting because it's like going in cannon, where if Tynan reacts to the first hand, he gets the second hand anyway. If he doesn't react to the first hand, he gets the second hand anyway. So it's a really nice sort of technique, and then you can see him establish the grips straight away. Now Tynan, masterfully done. He doesn't bother fighting the grips. Instead, he goes for his own, because he knows that if he can equalize the position, then you will be equal, right? Whereas if he wastes time fighting the grips, he's behind, and so he's in danger of getting his guard pulled or thrown pretty quickly without sort of any recourse. Yeah, and it looked like Jansen was going to go for a guard pull there, but Tynan does instead. So this is pretty cool. So we'll go back to that brief bit of action just for a second, just after Tynan pulls guard. What I really love that these guys do, both of them, is that they're not being passive in their guard. So what you have to understand about guard players is you can't be lazy. And what will happen is I'll point this out in a second, you'll get to a stage where nothing's really happening, right? They get to like here, and it looks like nothing's happening because there's only slight movements going on. He's like kicking this leg out. He's like moving it up. Jansen's like still got this grip, and he might readjust it up or have to retake it back, and he might shuffle side to side. But by and large, it looks like nothing's really happening. This situation where it's passive, quote unquote, only happens when both people are being incredibly active, and they're stalemating each other. So it's like immovable object meeting an unstoppable force, and then they like clash in the middle, and then they just get stalemated down the middle. It's not one person just being lazy here and the other person being lazy here, and then something magically happens in the middle. No, they're both pushing forwards, and they're just stopping each other. And this type of passivity, quote unquote, only happens at the highest levels when they're very equally matched. What you'll find is that if you roll against someone that's better than you, they just pass your guard because you're not doing the right things. But in order to be doing the right things, you need to be much more active. Now, examples of being active is you can see Tynan's head. It's off the floor. You can see how tensed his lat is. Like, that's his lat muscle there, I'm pretty sure. He's got his hips off the floor. He's bringing his knees in using his core. You can see how tensed he is. Jansen is holding a super, super deep squat. And he's being quite active with his hands, and he's keeping his back up and straight while he's driving his hips in. They're both being active, and it's a like, this is a teaching opportunity that's quite separate, but you should really try, if you can, to do away with the concept that you're able to take a break in a guard. And what you'll find happens a lot is coaches will go, right, for example, escaping side control, you need to shrimp and buck and fit until you get back to a closed guard, then you can have a rest. Well, that's not true, because if you're rolling against anyone of substance, they'll just immediately pass your guard or start the process of passing your guard, then you'll be behind. Then you'll be playing an open guard again, or a close range half guard pass, and it's going to be awful. You end up losing. You need to be active straight away. The only place you can have a rest really is on mount or on belly down back control, and even then you're not resting per se. You're expending less energy than your opponent. So if we come back in here, there's some really nice stuff that's going on. You can see how active Tynan is, and he's going for a sweep this way. So if you see, like, this hip is lower than this hip and he's trying to come up and over this way, and he's pulling, and he's got control over the leg. So he's kind of fulfilling the concept of the sweep of trying to take him, Jansen over the top. And then he goes for an underhook, because now if Jansen's not careful, Tynan's knee will drop on the inside of the thigh, and then this right leg of his will go over the top for a knee bar type thing, and or a sweep, because he's quite off balance that way, because his foot's being taken forwards. So it's very difficult, and Jansen's doing some really good work by shunting that leg down and staying hunched and forwards to stop his balance from going off. Yeah, and you can see this is exactly what I was talking about. You see how they're both moving, they're both being active, they're both looking for openings and opportunities, which is what happens. And people say that gi matches are boring, but this to me is art, because he's kicking this leg that way to try and open up space to lift him so that he can shoot his hips in, and it'll be much easier to rag him over the top, get underneath his hips, and then start attacking the legs. Or sweeping or whatever. But Jansen is doing this really nice thing where he's not super tense, he's connected, but he's allowing his arm to move to the extension of Tynan's leg, and then it comes back in. Then he allows it to move, then it comes back in. And so they're playing like a really cool chess match where they're kind of repeating moves, hoping the other makes a mistake. And you can see the small incremental advances come from when Tynan has an opportunity now to... Oh, I've done it again. There we go. Where Tynan has an opportunity to take the gi out. And then as soon as the gi comes out, he gets a bit more control. And then a bit more is better than not as much. And so this is where the advancements come in. Now, he is insanely flexible. That's his foot on his left leg. You know? And so you can see he's making small incremental advances, and then Tynan, that is, and it goes for the sweep now because he has a bit more control over the collar, trying to make something happen. But the grip, his grip gets broken. So if we back that up, oh, hang on, what have I done? If we back this up just a second, he's got one hand underneath, the foot's stuck in, and this outside foot is here like so. Now again, he's Tynan, that is latched on to one of Jansen's bases. Excuse me. And so it could be relatively easy to start looking to off-balance him, especially because his left hand here has got the gi grip. Yep. And then he did this big swing motion to build that momentum to start taking Jansen this way. And now it looks like the sweep will commence and continue if he manages to keep that grip. But he doesn't manage to keep it because Jansen manages to base out really nicely. You notice how he still has control of that far leg. And so this is beautiful jiu-jitsu, really, really intelligent, aware play, is that Jansen used Tynan's sweep to help him pin Tynan's leg. And so now, if Tynan wants to use his right leg, he's going to have to swing it back, which will pull Jansen back into his base. And he can't commit forwards because the leg is pinned. And also the knee on the face doesn't look particularly fun. And so now he has a free resource to start stripping the grip, which is what connects Tynan to him and will allow Tynan to start looking for advantage. Back step, nice. And then... this whole sequence is really, really, really nice. The whole sequence was really nice. There's two things I want to talk about, which is damage mitigation, and then the scramble, and the judgment, right? We're going to come back. Where are we? So the scramble happens from here, somewhere, where Jansen, because his only unrestricted limb is this one, so he knows that if he can pop off this top hook, he'll be in a really good spot because Tynan is not flat, but he's on the ground and he's got a leg pin. So he'll be in a better spot if he backsteps and manages to settle low, trying to get his head on the inside space. Remembering the inside space is, on the chest below the chin. And yeah, that backstep is really pleasant because now he has the use of his left hand, which was pinning the floor because he's got his knees under him now, to start pushing on Tynan's left leg here, pushing it away and then settling down, which is the idea. Tynan immediately reacts by pushing, and what Jansen does, he pushes his leg out, and what Jansen does is he comes back a little bit to clear the space, throwing the leg with him and clearing the space out of the way. Like so. And you see how he pummeled the knee. And now the only thing that's saving Tynan here is these arm wraps and the knee going in. So he's trying to get this bottom foot of his right leg out, and then reefing his hands back so that Jansen is forced to sit down. But Jansen's got this base on his arm and it's very difficult now. So what happens here is that Tynan bails out of the position, going for that leg for a better wrap. Jansen sprawls down, kicks his legs out, and manages to get this underhook, which is really, really nice. Now, Tynan, you've got to remember that this all happens in the space of like 3 seconds, so the decision makes like boom, 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 boom. Tynan is committed forwards now. Jansen sees this and goes, right, I'm spinning because I sprawled. I've got momentum because you're pushing into me. I'm going to spin around to the side, like my chest is connected to your shoulders, and I'm going to be a little spin top. But he adds in that, I didn't see that before, that really nice little movement where he slows Tynan down. Jansen slows him down. He like rags him over first, then goes. And then you can see how Tynan goes, right, I don't want to get on my back, because if his back goes on the mats with his chest this way, he loses the side control and then probably loses the match. So he's committed now to trying to go to turtle. So that was a really smart intermediary step where Jansen can force the slowing down and force the reaction of Tynan. He's committed now to going to his knees, and then he's going to use Tynan's arm as like the catalyst for his momentum. And he goes around the back, immediately sinking in a chest to back control. The only thing here that I'd like to see is his head a bit lower, but there's such a minor thing that it doesn't really matter. Immediately the knee goes in as well. Immediately the top leg is hunting for the hook. So Tynan, remember this is happening in the space of 2 seconds, goes and forward rolls. And then, but because Jansen had such a good control, he's now threatening getting the back. And I really like what Tynan's doing here. He's grabbing onto the bottom leg, not allowing the hook so that his hips can come free over the top and down. And you see how he's completely forgoing defense of his neck, more or less, in favor of not allowing the hooks to go in, because as soon as they do, it becomes much harder for Jansen to follow him. Even though on a back control, the chest to back is the most important part, the hooks still play a factor in keeping you attached. And so he's got his chin buried in, but he's not worried about the defense of the choke yet. He's worried about the defense of the hooks. So this is top tier decision making. And you see how his hips come out, and because his hips came out, Jansen's now losing this space in here. Yep, but he bails and he continues to follow, and this beautiful scramble from Tynan prevents Jansen from securing a back control that easily. And then it gets to a point where Jansen's just done such a good job of following him around the whole time that Tynan goes, right, the damage mitigation is time. So you're going to get an advantage. I give up an advantage in favor of a half guard. Because what happened was Tynan tried to roll this way, but Jansen had caught up to the point where he was attached to the back. So before Jansen manages to settle, Tynan goes, no, not happening, reaps back the other way and secures the half guard, which is a significantly better position to play from than the bottom of a back control. Now, I know I've already paused this a fair bit, so this will be a long video, but the damage mitigation factor here is absolutely top tier. He knows, right, well, I've messed this up. You're winning now. I'm going to concede that you were better than me here, and I'm going to take a better position than what would otherwise happen if I kept on fighting it, which again is something that I bash Marino for all the time, is that Marino's just way too stubborn, and would have fought that to like trying to scramble out because he wanted more than what he got, whereas Tynan here recognizes that he's not winning and he won't win that position, so he may as well go into a half guard further ahead in the half guard. It doesn't look like he is at the moment, because Jansen's got his chest below the elbow, but again, it's still significantly better than Jansen's chest being on his back. And so he bails out and he damage mitigates the position to where it's still playable rather than belly down back control or bottom of mount or something, you know. Now, little shuffle shimmies. He's got his feet on the floor, his hips up, and so one person's trying to drive in. Exactly. So Tynan's trying to drag his hips out, turn them back in, and then the whole idea of what he's trying to do here is he's not trying to free this bottom leg over the top of the leg. That's a mistake that I see a lot of students make, because what happens if you free the bottom leg over the top of the knee is that, yes, you can shrimp out a bit more easily, but your back will still be flat on the mats, and then the person that's on top will be on top of your chest. It's a losing position. Instead, what you're trying to do is you're trying to force the knee up so that you can get back into a knee cut position, which is a reverse De La Riva guard. And so the reverse De La Riva guard is significantly easier to play. And even if it doesn't happen that way, you still end up in a half guard, like what happens here in a second. You still end up on your side facing the other person, which again is a much easier position to play. And that all stems from the decision making to try and force the knee up with your forward hip escapes versus trying to force the knee up and then escape over the top of it because you think you're making progress. And so, yeah, exactly. And then you see how what happened there was Tynan did this really cool thing where he lifted Jansen up, and Jansen had to respect the fact that he was going up towards the top of Tynan's head. So he retreats back, which allows the space for Tynan to come back into it. And then all of a sudden this underhook is not deep, so that Tynan might be able to get the elbow back on the inside space. Ref stops them. I think they hit the edge of the mats. Far out, these guys look like they've been chiseled from Mount Olympus, don't they? Yeah, so they're resetting the position now. It's really important, especially with the World Finals. Just gonna see if I can skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, it looks like... Okay, we'll go from here. So they're back into the fight now. I think that the cameraman just like focused on the audience for a second. Did I miss something? No, I don't think I did. Yeah, no. So it looked like the cameraman just panned away for a second, and then they started. So Jansen's going for his double unders. He's doing a really good job of trying to get underneath and around the corner. He's pinning the legs, trying to throw them off the top. And then, again, Tyna's just doing this amazing job with the stiff arm frame and like doing little shoulder walks backwards. There's no real mistakes going on either side. So there's nothing really to analyze unless, you know, you wanted a full technical breakdown, but we'd be here for like 10 hours then. So I'm not going to do that for this video because it's a bit longer. And so they're going through their really nice leg weave guard retention drills. All of everything you're seeing here, guys, is just your super simple weaves, your super simple shrimps, and your super simple hip shuffle side to side, just done 100 million times at a high level. You know, like for reference, I don't know how long Tyna's been training. He's like 21, so I assume that he's been training for about 10 years. I myself have been training for 12, and I figured out the other day I've done close to about 20,000 hours of jiu-jitsu, and that's like 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for, you know, 12 years, that type of thing. These guys would have done more than that already because they just love jiu-jitsu, you know. It's like, it's pretty insane how much effort they've put into just making their shrimps good. And so we come back into that stalematey type thing where they're making small incremental advances, and you see how all of a sudden the position changes because Tynan was allowed to get this knee underneath. Now, I do say quite often, I don't respect single leg X positions in gi because the person on top can grab your collar and just pull themselves in and then use this knee to force pressure through your ribs. Jansen, is going the opposite direction to how I usually do, but this is a wise decision because of this knee. If he were to turn this way and drop this knee in, this outside foot would be able to lift and take him over the top for a sweep. That said, he doesn't have control. So really ideally what you're trying to do is you're trying to grab onto the collar, and then your outside hand is like a base on the floor. And we saw this in the Marigali versus Marino match. And it's not the greatest position to put yourself in unless you're going into an X-guard. It's not the greatest position to play in gi. In no gi, however, because it's easy to mitigate the power of the right hand on the collar, because they have to grab behind the head and then you can pummel the hand off the head. Very good position. Yeah, so Jansen's doing this really good job of just not allowing the grip to come into play. And Tynan's doing this really good job of trying to turn him to the outside, but Jansen again is doing this really good job with his base. These guys have maxed out their balance stats to 99 out of 99. Again, I don't necessarily think that this is the right call for the right hand. It is at the moment because the foot is on the hip now, but and he's lengthened out and low. But I would have loved to see him go for the collar grip and then pull himself in and trying to lift this heel as he sits down and like forwards, tucking the heel around the corner. That would have been the way to go to beat this. Again, we saw Marigali do that against Marino, and in my opinion, that's the strongest thing to be doing. So this is the first mistake that I'm seeing in this match, really. And if you're wondering why he got a second advantage, it's because they hit out of bounds while Jansen was passing, and that's counted as an advantage in the rule set, I believe. Far out, I just like, just got sympathy pains in my groin watching this dude do the splits. Look at that. So against anyone else, that 100% would have worked. Well, maybe not anyone else, because there's a lot of really flexy people. But like against me, 100% that probably would have worked, because my flexibility would have like crapped out about here, and then I would have gone and then fallen and then died. But again, balance stat, flexibility stats all maxed out, so this is very difficult because now Tyne is pushed to the extension of his leg, and Jansen still has flexibility to spare. And so now it's hard to start lifting because the weight's still coming forwards, as you can see. And then what happened was Dana just helped him back up to his feet. It's a bit of a problematic position for Jansen to be playing, though, because he's got his foot off the ground now. So he's relying on his balance more so than technical ability in jiu-jitsu. And this would be so frustrating. This would be so frustrating for Tynan because, again, he's got such good control over everything, and Jansen's just not falling. His balance is so good. It'd just be so annoying to play against. And then all of a sudden, he gets out to this point where he does that backstep, if you saw. He's going to backstep this leg out, and then there's nothing controlling his hips at all. And so he's just going to reef forwards and then try and pass. And then Tynan will go back into his leg weaves. He rips out and then hips in for like a smash pass type thing, or like punching the leg forward. And Tynan just does this really good job of getting the legs back in the whole time. And so, yeah, good decision making all the time. What the idea would be for me, if you could manage. Now, it's really hard against people that are so tensilely strong. And in my experience in this weight class, in middleweight, they're like 80-something kilos, but they feel as strong as the boppers, maybe like 10% less strong than the boppers in the heavyweight. So they can still lift you regardless of how heavy you are, unless you're one of those big turkeys that are like 150 kilo plus sort of thing. And so, like, when you try and put weight on them, they just lift you and then move, because they're so agile at this weight as well that they can move their hips side to side really easily. And it's just so annoying trying to put pressure on. But the idea for me, if I was Jansen, would have been to stall the position and slow it down, trying to collapse the legs because he was over the top of them. Like so. But again, it's hard when your opponent moves as well as Tynan does. Bit of a dangerous position. Jansen's lifeline is that right hand. He needs to be worried about the triangles, so he's controlling the legs really well. And we're back into the guard play. Now, again, this comes back into being active. You see how active Tynan's being. I mean, he's got 5.5 minutes to work, but in reality, there's not actually that long to make something happen against an opponent that you win against by 1 advantage and your 2 advantages down. It's a pretty hefty bridge to start fighting. Again, that balance from Jansen is absolutely insane. His ability just to not get swept is largely what's saving him in this match. And so his body positioning and his placement and so don't get me wrong, guys, you need to be really aware of what your body's doing in order to have good balance. That's not a natural thing for people to be that good at balancing. If you don't believe me, then babies have to learn to walk. Toddlers have to learn to walk. Yeah, we can balance on 2 feet, but you can improve your balance. If you still don't believe me, go stand on 1 leg. It's something that people have to develop. And so Jansen here is just he's got such an ability to balance that he's cultivated really well over time, probably by being swept a bunch and then just being stubborn about how he's being swept, to the point where it's muscle memory and he just instinctually knows where to put his weight. But it's like a physical attribute, just like strength, isn't it? It's not technical ability in jiu-jitsu that's saving him. It's his physical attribute that he's cultivated. And again, I know we're going on a detour here. That's part of grappling, though, which is why I have issue with people that say don't use strength. I can understand it for new people that are learning jiu-jitsu and you want good technique so they don't just force it. But saying don't use strength and getting upset with people that are stronger than you is exactly like saying don't use flexibility, don't use agility, don't use your speed. It's not fair that you move underneath me because you're smaller than I am, so don't do that. It's just a nothing statement, isn't it? It's a tool in your toolbox that you should use. So it's like saying to Jansen here, don't use your balance. And so grappling, you have to think of as not just technical attributes, it's physical attributes as well. And this is what makes it beautiful, is that the small uns that have the agility and the speed and all the rest of it should be able to outclass the big uns that have strength and maybe not flexibility and agility. So only when you get people like Bushesha that have both size as well as speed, agility, etc., where you get 15-time world champions. Or you get people like Hodger that can switch gears, but generally plods along and makes you play gear 1 with him, which he's really good at. Anyway, I digress. Point is, I'm very, very impressed with Jansen's ability to not get swept. It's just insane. Now they're fighting for the scramble, so they're both trying to come up on top of each other, but because of that base, it makes it easier for Jansen to get back up. You see this really nice side toshi guard. So the side toshi is when you have a grip underneath on the collar. The collar goes to the outside underneath the leg. your hand's got the grip, and then your foot goes through the hole, the loop that's made. The way that I've been taught Sayatoshi is not to grab onto the collar, but to grab onto the sleeve if you can, and then to sit more side on, so your hips are out here somewhere. This leg's free, because you can do like a backward roll to the other side, knee goes on, and then you pull this hand up, and then they get like flipped onto their bum. I'm sure that Tynan has reasons for his decision to make to grab onto the collar. Probably because he wants to drag underneath, or potentially hook and lift. Whatever his reasons are, maybe he's just not sure what to do and is keeping the grip because he's not sure what to do, making something happen. Either way, this is a very difficult position for Jansen to play now. Yeah, nice. Okay, so looks like the collar grip is like a staging grip for Tynan to start looking for his other sweeps. And here you see he's getting into the more classical version of the Sayatoshi that I know, where his hips are a bit further away. Now Jansen has to be worried about this grip here, because if Tynan manages to grab and pull it in, there's an armbar attack right there by swinging the leg up and over the head. So generally grabbing the knee is not a good idea if you're in this position, because the grip's a bit weaker, but grabbing the pant legs can be a good idea because it's a stronger grip, there's more fabric. And you can see he's trying to get underneath, and Jansen is so off balance this way. Again, the only thing saving him is this hand. So if Tynan ever managed to grab it, he'd get swept. He would sweep Jansen, that is. But Jansen's ability to space manage in these difficult positions is really top tier. So you see how he's leaning backwards now. Is just making the inversions really difficult because he's so far away. And you can see how Tynan's trying to pull him in, trying to pull himself in, trying to reset to go again and again and again. And you see here, yeah, nice. He goes for the grip to try and pull him in, but immediately Jansen sits on the shoulder, because they've both seen this song and dance before, and so they're both shutting each other down well in advance of anything that can actually go on. And then he's going to want to pull in and then go over the head, but look how far away his head is from his hips now. Once again, Jansen's knee is blocking the hips from coming in, so it's just beautiful positioning from both of them. Jansen more so than Tynan at the moment. And it looks like Tynan wants to try and go for the sweep, and he's managing to get a little bit further in. But again, Jansen just shuts it all down really nicely, and then they end up resetting the position because nothing's going to happen. And Jansen's ability to go forwards and backwards and distance manage perfectly is absolutely out of this world. And frankly, from that alone, he kind of deserves this win. He's actually outclassing Tynan pretty heavily here. It just doesn't look like it because Tynan's still in it. Anything could happen at any time. But it does look like Jansen actually outclassed Tynan pretty heavily here to me. Yeah, and so now this is a really cool back attack that Tynan's going for. This is really cool. I don't think I've ever seen this actually. Passing the foot over the hip. So now it's like a slowed down version of a Kiss of the Dragon inversion type thing, where if Tynan is allowed to get this knee underneath, his other hand will hunt for the belt and he'll drag him across and in. That type of thing. And then it'll be really difficult for Jansen to stop either a sweep or the back take. But Jansen's just going, nah, you can't have that knee back. Sorry, dude. And he's sitting away. And he's using like this bottom foot to shrimp, and he's using his other hand to distance manage really well. So he's just not allowing this to happen. And he's not worried about sitting down and rocking backwards, because the sweep is so hard to get from here, because they're like a ball at the moment, and they can rock side to side pretty easily. And so yeah, the thing that Tynan really wants right now is this grip off of his leg. What I'd be very tempted to do if I was him is well, it's actually a bit difficult, isn't it? Because this grip is what's keeping him in the fight as well. But just trying somehow, some way to get rid of that grip so that he could put the foot behind him and start getting up. Because as soon as he gets up, that counts as a sweep. He gets 2 points and then he wins, which is what he tried. But again, Jansen's like, nah, I'm going to reef him off the floor. It just doesn't allow it. Really nice leg weaves. I don't know what that dance was. Young people are weird. Alright, so they're going to tie the belt. They're going to take like 10 years to do it, because it's good to have a break. At this point, if you're Tynan, you can't really be wasting time playing guard. The better decision is probably to stand up and go for a takedown. Like maybe in the last, like stall it out for a minute, see if you can make something happen for a minute 30, and then just blast into a double leg. Because at that point, you either get it or you lose, and so there's nothing really going to happen. And Mr. Gomes here is proven that he is just better at not getting swept than Tynan is at sweeping. So maybe double legs and all the rest of it is a bit difficult, and you can see here how he's threatening things. But again, Jansen's distance management is just top tier, and he's now down almost a minute, 55 seconds in a second, and nothing's happened. So he would have been better off trying to get up. And you see how it's just absolutely astounding how good Jansen is at this. He's like going hips up. He's reefing this hand up as best he can, but it's connected to his hips. So now the power is here. So it looked like Tynan was able to get up, but again, his foot's on the top of the hip, pushing him down as he's going hips up. And so it's just going to be super difficult because this foot is now favoring Jansen as long as they put both the same amount of effort in. And I met a really lovely jiu-jitsu coach. English isn't his first language, and he says the will to win is really important in these positions where who's more stubborn for the sweep, because it could go either way, right? But it's going to go Jansen's way because he's way more stubborn. He's got more will to win the match. And that, with the slight advantage of the foot on the hip, just puts it in his favor. Even if they're both as stubborn as each other, it's still Jansen's favor because of that foot. And so now we've got less than a minute to go, and again, you probably were better served going for a takedown and then like forcing him off the mats, because then you're the aggressor. You get your advantage back, and just doing it again, and then again, and then again, and the reset happens, and then all of a sudden you win by an advantage. But I'm willing to bet that Tynan was a bit more confident and comfortable with guard play. This looks like a pretty dangerous position to be playing, and it looks pretty good for Tynan. But again, holy mackerel, Roni, far out, Jansen is really good at not getting swept, and he's just walking backwards on his hands. And Tynan was trying to get out and up, but Jansen's not allowing it because he's just going backwards. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And so now Tynan's in like a really weird Berimbolo reap type position. This was Nogi. He would be looking for a heel hook pretty quickly. And he's now threatening the back, but Jansen knows that it's only 4 seconds left. And it doesn't matter. And so all he has to do is just put in the effort to go backwards, like we saw, and then all of a sudden he wins, you know. And so he's just this knee. He's just pushing that knee down, and he's got such elongated base. It's very difficult for Tynan's hips to come in close to his. You see how far away they are, you know. It's really, really cool. And so the reason why Jansen won this match is that he's just got such an ability not to get swept. It's a good feeling for him to win a Worlds. Wouldn't know what it's like. And pretty reasonable celebration, honestly, if you just win Worlds. Good on him. Really, really well done. So, really top tier performance. Neither of them really made mistakes there, and Tynan's handling himself like a true professional. He's disappointed, you can see, but he's not sulking, you know. So he's handling himself like a proper professional. Well done, lad. So, yeah, Jansen will tie his belt up, and then we'll get the hand up. Very well done. Really, really well done. It was a very good match. Very high level jiu-jitsu, and yeah, shaking the hands is good sportsmanship. So it's been very hard not to celebrate like this when you just win. So I can see both sides of it. You know, one of the previous videos I said act like you've been there before, but I mean, maybe he hasn't been there before. Maybe this is the first world title, and also he just beat Tynan Dalpra, so I would be probably stoked like him. Anyway, I'm sorry, just rambling now. It's a really good match, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. A bit of a shorter episode today because I'm just trying to do a bit less of the deep dive. I might do some deep dives on like specific sequences, so it's like 20-minute videos, but on like a 30-minute sequence. If you'd like that, please don't hesitate to let me know. I do read the comments. I quite like reading the comments. I don't have many yet, but I'm hoping that I get more. Again, please don't forget to subscribe, guys, and I'll see you all for the next one. Thanks.